I remember you partying against K-State in the 97 Fiesta Bowl, running into the end zone, partying. I remember telling D. Howard, I was like, who is this? He goes, yeah, that's my boy dancing. I was like, oh, here we go. Just partying in the end zone. The running back position has been a glorified position in the National Football League for decades. Jim Brown, Walter Payton, all those guys, pillars and legends of the game. Well, over the last 5 to 10 years, the running back position has been one of, shall we say, a churn and burn. Let's use them up and let's go draft another guy. Don't get to that second contract. Well, we got former NFL running back Dee Brown with us today to kind of discuss a little bit on how the position has not necessarily been devalued, but how the person has been devalued. And we also touch a little bit on mental health as well. So join us today. Let's get into this. All right, D, thanks for joining us today, man. How you doing, brother?
Great, man. Thanks for having me. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. Before we get started, tell everybody a little bit about you, your football journey to the NFL, and before, just kind of give people a little bit a background about yourself.
Okay, man, I'll try. I'm not good at, talking about myself, but obviously I'm a Florida guy, born and raised, Clearwater, Florida. College years were spent at Syracuse as a quarterback. Eventually I moved over to the tailback position. Happened to be a great choice for me because I was following a guy by the name of Donovan McNabb, pretty good guy, future Hall of Famer. So I wanted to get on the field early, man, and ask coach to give me a shot. Went to a spring and did it, man, and the rest is history. Had some record-breaking career. And it was absolutely a joy, the friendships I was able to form and the championships we were able to win. Then it went on to obviously be drafted by the Carolina Panthers. Spent 6 years in the National Football League, which is a blessing, being that, the average lifespan in the NFL is only 3.4 years. So after that, man, I just went into business as most of us do when we're done and trying to be that entrepreneur piece. And that was short-lived from the situation we had nationwide where, our market crashed and everything. And I got into what I call my heart's desire, man. I got into coaching and really seeing where my talents could impact our young boys' lives. And so I went to the middle school level, high school level, and now obviously I'm here at Campbell University, the quarterback coach, and loving every bit of it, man.
Absolutely, man. I remember you partying against K-State in the 97 Fiesta Bowl, running into the end zone, partying. I remember telling D. Howard, I was like, who is this? He goes, yeah, that's my boy dancing. I was like, oh, here we go. Just partying in the end zone.
Hey, partying in the end zone, man, that was such a great time for us, for me and Dee, for the simple fact, man, that we came, from the same neighborhood. Me and Darren used to, have slumber parties together and stuff, man. And it's so crazy to see where like the music has gone. I'll tell you a quick little story. How everybody has these beats and the boards and everything. And man, Darren was doing that when he was like 11, 12 years old. He was doing that with our Atari systems and all that stuff, man. So when that stuff first came out, it was I laughed about it because I'm like, I got a good friend of mine, a homeboy of mine who's been doing that since we were preteens. And yeah, man. So to be in the Fiesta Bowl and to dance a little bit in the end zone versus my guy, that was it was great for us and great for the city and the neighborhood.
Absolutely, man. So getting into this football, this running back thing, man, in the NFL, being a former NFL player, obviously the position has changed, and not necessarily the importance, it's how they're being used. Before they give a guy the ball 30 times, get us 150 yards. That's all we're going to use. Then it changed up to, we're going to use two backs. Now it's more of, okay, we're going to have a guy, a bulldozer, but we're going to have a pass catcher, and now it's kind of It's both, actually. You got some teams that use both. You got some teams that are like, you know what? They're interchangeable.
Right.
So as far as the running back position is concerned, tell me how the difference is as you see it as a former NFL running back when you played and how it is today.
Well, it's a couple of differences. When I played, like you said, it was more of a workhorse type of position, a guy who could carry it, 25, 30 times a game. I remember a Patriot scout interviewing me and telling me, that was one of the drawbacks in me getting drafted. Where I got drafted is because I didn't have those type of games where you could really just be that bell cow. And so it just lets you know what it was when, back in that time. And it started back, you talk about the Tony Dorsett's, the Earl Campbells, the Walter Paytons. Those guys were the workhorses, right? And so, then you had the EDs and all those guys. It was just a great time for running backs because you didn't devalue them then because the offenses were predicated off how good and how successful your running game was. And as you spoke of, we started to transition into this, this thing now where it's running back by committee. We have a specialist and things of that nature. I don't really like the transition that it's had. But at the same time, I understand that the offenses have changed. Money has changed. At the same time, it is giving guys an opportunity to have longer careers. One of my good friends was Larry Johnson when we were in Kansas City. And I think the first year we were together in 2005, this guy's led the league in carries and touches. And it was like, I want to say 400 something touches. And it's like, bro, that is a lot. Okay.
Yeah.
And what's going to happen is next year, you watch the 2 years after that, man, his numbers drop significantly. And it wasn't the scheme or the coach. It was, the body just can't hold up when doing that. And so he was kind of a dinosaur, if you will, kind of like Derrick Henry is now, as far as the running back position. They're really going to, guys by committee, at least two of them, i.e. the Dallas Cowboys with Zeke and Tony Pollard. So it's just, the narrative continues to change about that position. I think it's one of the most important positions, really, because I'm still a believer that, the ones who have one of the best running games are the programs that'll be deep in the playoffs and have a likelihood to go into the championship. Kansas City, one of the best quarterbacks ever. They still rely on, their running game to a certain degree because they want to keep defenses honest. And so from that standpoint, the importance of the position has not changed. I just think the narrative has changed. And so we know in this world that we live in, that thing can change, and it really changed the effect of how people treat that position.
Right. And it's the importance. It's good that you said that because you're right. The importance of the running back position has not changed at all. Right. If you don't have a good running game or a good running back, you're not winning. You're just not doing that in football. However, the devaluing, and this is where, I've talked about it, is that they have taken the position, not necessarily devaluing the position, but devaluing the player per se. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is they will draft you, and they're not going to draft you that high, so they don't have to pay you as much.
That's right.
But they will run you into the ground, and then they will go draft another guy. They're not giving these second contracts to all these running backs. It's few and far between where guys are getting that second contract. And that's where I feel bad about the running back position. Because like you said, growing up, the best player on every team, or at least so we thought, it was always the running back. The Tony Dorsett's, Earl Campbell's, Walter Payton. You could take it back to Jim Brown. It was always those guys. Eric Dickerson, which is a guy that I think is highly underrated. But it was those guys. And now it is not those guys. Like I said, Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook got a second contract, but you see Minnesota's trying to get off him. Even Derrick Henry, they're trying to get off him. It's like they give some of these guys a contract, but it's few and far between, man. I think that is where I think a lot of people think, well, the position's being devalued. I don't think it's the position. I think it's maybe the person, but You tell me what you think, like I said, as a former NFL guy.
I think you hit it right on the head. Like you said before, the position hasn't lost its value. It's just it's a collective number of things that contribute to this narrative being created that, you can get a good running back, they come a dime a dozen, that piece. And one of the main reasons is just, the offenses. It's a lot more wide open. It's fast. It's more basketball than it is, what it was 20 years ago. 3 yards, 4 yards in the cloud of dust used to be a famous saying in the football world. That is no longer. So I think as we were talking about, the position is what it is. It's not going to lose the importance of the team, but it just loses its value in the public eye. And so as you said, you have guys like a Derrick Henry that they're trying to move on from, Dalvin Cook. You see guys like Ezekiel Elliott, they're putting, other guys like Tony Pollard coming in and taking some of the load off. They try to make it a cheap position, but it's really not. It's really not. Right. I think when you look at, as I said before, you just look at the guys who go to the playoffs on a consistent basis. It's very, very few are just, a bunch of throwers. And even when you have those type of situations now with offenses, you have quarterbacks who can run. So they're part of that running attack as well, i.e. Josh Allen, the Lamar Jacksons, the Russell Wilsons of the world. And so I think that kind of takes away from some of the importance and the emphasis we put on the running back position as well. But if you're a true football person, you understand the sport. You truly understand that you can't have a strong foundation if you don't have a strong run game. And the running backs are, doing well. I mean, there's a lot of them that are, right kind of together as far as the elite. There's not really one standing out, that type of thing. And so it really just shows you that there's a plethora of very, very good starting running backs in the National Football League. And so I hope at some point we, erase the stigma and get out of that type of stereotype, and they start really compensating these young men for the great work and the body of work that they have. I wish, if we could start changing it, start giving these guys their money before they get broke down, We used to give quarterbacks, $60, $70 million coming out of college before they even took a snap. You know what I mean? And so, start doing that with the RBs. If you're going to say that, okay, he don't have any more tread on his tire, so we don't want to pay him as much. You have all these different, limitations on why you don't want to pay him, man. I think these guys, for what they do and for the body of work that they put in, you got to compensate them. They deserve it. There's some great backs out there. You need some, there's some Hall of Famers out there. And so they need to be compensated for the type of talent that they put out on the field every Sunday.
Absolutely, man. I couldn't agree with you more in that aspect. And one of the things is, and you brought him up you brought the situation up as far as running quarterbacks. Lamar Jackson's not necessarily, he's a running quarterback, but Baltimore has a running game. They hand the ball off to running backs. Yeah. One of the quarterbacks that you did mention that I think it hurts them is Buffalo. They don't hand the ball off to their running backs, and they have them. And my whole thing is, why aren't you using these guys? I go, because sooner or later, Josh Allen is going to take a hit just for his running style that you're not going to like. Well, then now your quarterback's out. When you have a running back, if it's true that, we're just going to churn and burn these running backs, well, why aren't they using them? To me, that doesn't make any sense, because as quiet as it's kept, the running backs on the Buffalo Bills are better running backs than what Josh Allen is. I don't care what anybody has to say about that. Mm-hmm. That's just a fact.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. The thing you got to consider when you talk about that is that, the amount of money and responsibility they're putting on the quarterback. So they're asking them to do a lot more. And part of that is run the football. With Josh Allen, that's a guy that reminds me of a combination of Cam Newton and Aaron Rodgers. So I get it, I get the phenomenon in what you have at that position. But you have capable guys who can take some of those hits off of your quarterback. You got to have a running game to bleed some clock. You got to have a running game to help, defenses, your defense. There's so many reasons that you need to have a running game that you prioritize, so that you can win and sustain winning. So one example that you talked about, Buffalo, like you say, they don't really use the running game, but they do run the ball, but they're just running it with their high priced quarterback. So it's just an interesting phenomenon that's going on in the league. And at some point, like I said before, man, that I hope everyone does their due diligence and allow the running back position to be highlighted and giving them flowers before it's over, so to speak, because they deserve it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And just to end on that, or in that point anyway, do you think in the next 5 years that anything is going to change? Because in my opinion, everything in the NFL, it always recycles. I mean, that's just the way that it is. Because offenses always, change and the defense catches up. Then the offensive change and the defense catches up. Do you think it'll get back to, we got to put a little bit more emphasis on this running back position. We got to run the ball more than what we're throwing. I mean, analytics kind of eliminates a lot of that because, you can throw the ball further than you can run it, or at least quicker. So do you think it gets back to that at all?
I hope so. It doesn't. You said 5 years. I don't know in 5 years. I think, where offense is now, it's still evolving. It hasn't plateaued. Right. And I think it won't go back to, history repeating itself in the run game being most important until, that this evolution that we're going through as far as offensive football starts to plateau. And so, once we get there, I think then it'll start to come back. It's almost like when you are watching the NBA, you can see for, many years, recently they didn't have a traditional center, anybody who could play with their back to the basket, right? Because that consists of more the slow down, half court set, running plays, that type of thing, right? Throw it in and just bang, bang, bang. Where now it's, hey, one pass and let's shoot it. We're shooting threes better, more than we ever have in basketball history. And I think there's some correlation with how football is too. It's just where the sport is right now and how wide open. And it's fan friendly because obviously you're going to have explosive plays and touchdowns and fireworks and things of that nature. I just think it just kind of has to go through that fad, just like in the NBA. You're starting to see some guys who are now playing with their back to the basket, like a Jokic at Denver or Embiid in Philly. You're starting to see that. So I think those guys are going to be coming back in that sport, and I think eventually. We'll get back to, kind of a ground and pound. We may have a little more, pizzazz, to it. But I really do think that, at some point you're going to get back to it because, what the state that we're in offensively and offensive games in football, you're going to find people are working right now to find a solution. Sure. RPO world is so big now. Now people are going to find that solution at some point. And when you find that solution, it's going to evolve to something else. Where it's going to, at some point, it can't evolve to just anything. It's going to go back to what you're familiar with. And I think that's when we're talking about when the run game will be most important again.
Got it. Makes sense. It's wild that you said you compared the running back position to the center. I was talking to somebody 2 days ago, and they said literally the exact same thing. Is that you can compare it, the running back position to a center. It's like it's almost obsolete. Yeah. I go, but you always need it. You always need it.
That's right.
That's right. So in saying that, as a former NFL guy, top 5 running backs, do you have a top 5 running back list right now? Without you, I'm not trying to get you in any trouble if you hang out with guys in the league. I'm just asking, who do you, better yet, let me go first. I don't want to get you in trouble. Let me go first. So I got McCaffrey, Austin Eckler. Again, I'm a bell cow guy, so I like Nick Chubb. I got Jacobs, and then I got Derrick Henry as my top 5 guys. So I still got Henry in there. I know Henry's a little injury prone, but you know what? When healthy, he's a monster. He's a monster.
Absolutely, especially towards the end of the year, right? Man,
yeah, absolutely. So, but those are my top 5 right now. Who, if any, do you have as your top 5 people?
All right. So my top 5 consists of Jonathan Taylor. And understand now, I'm not going by just what happened
He was
in the
hurt,
last
man.
3 months. Okay, I
He was
got to at
hurt.
least consider the last 2 seasons, if you will.
That's right.
Right.
He was hurt last year. You hurt
Right.
an ankle
Right. So
early,
I know
you're
some
not
people
healthy.
probably
I
like
get it.
boo, but JT, he's
I
on fire.
got you.
He's a great back. And then I like Tony Pollard. I know,
Okay.
he's making a name for himself, and he's really kind of taking over. Obviously because it was part of the decision in letting Zeke go, because
Right.
this young man he gives you everything that you look for in a running back. He's fresh. He's ready. He can get in and out of cuts. He can catch. He can block. He has home run ability. He has durability. Obviously, I say that now, and he's hurt, but before then, he was a very durable back, and I'm looking forward to him being that feature guy. And then you talk about Derrick Henry, the dinosaur of the running backs, right? This man is still one of the top 5 running backs. Okay,
Yeah.
whoever
Yeah.
gets him is gonna get a horse and somebody that,
Right.
like you said, hey, come towards the end of the year, we get in that cold weather, we get in the playoffs. We got a 3-point to 7-point lead. Now we're in our 4-minute offense, and we got to go down and keep it.
Absolutely.
He's that guy. So as long as those are
Absolutely.
needs within your game, you got to have a guy like him. If you have that opportunity, there's not a bunch of Derrick Henrys walking the world, but
Right.
when
Right.
you get him, you surely don't try to throw him to the wolves. If he, just because he has a decline a year or two, he's still a top 5 back. The Derrick Henry averaged I think 4.5. I think his long was like 56.
Right.
JP Long was of 86. So you're talking about some guys who are producing. Then you talk about Nick Chubb. That was one of your guys on your list.
Yeah, buddy.
You talking about a Cleveland Browns team who, didn't have a very good season. They got all the things going on with Deshaun or whatnot. And so they're trying to, right the ship, so to speak. But this guy still averaged 5.1. Okay,
Yep.
You're talking about 5.1 in the National Football League. You're talking about an elite back. You're talking about that's a very good season from an average per carry type, and he only had a longer 41. So it wasn't like, this is what boosted his average. He was going to get it every week that he was healthy and in there. And so Nick Chubb has been doing it for the past couple of years. He's also, and that's why he's one of my top 5. And then lastly, you called his name out, and I was trying to figure out if I wanted to name him or Christian McCaffrey. But I'm a little biased with Christian because he came, from Carolina. Obviously, we were the same number, same position. And I like his style. If I had to compare a style for myself, I was more of a third down guy. So I could see some of his abilities, correlating with what I was able to do. But I didn't pick him. I picked the Jacobs guy out of Oakland. You just look at his body of work over the last 2 seasons. You look at, offensively, they were, not very productive as a team. They wasn't, but they leaned on him, and he's just answered the bell. And I don't know if I'm biased because he just has a great story, but this young man is really just coming to play every game and really putting Oakland as much as he can on his shoulders, man. And he averaged, he was able to average like 4.9. I think his long was 86. So we talking about some elite guys with home run ability, but also can grind that thing out and kind of give you that bell cow characteristic that we were talking about earlier.
Absolutely. And the thing about like Jacobs, like the Raiders' offensive line wasn't very good.
Right.
And he was still able to do the things that he was doing. And Nick Chubb, now they had Kareem Hunt, but there's times Nick Chubb should have got the ball 25, 30 times a game. And they just didn't get you. You would see games, he's got 14 carries, but he had 85 yards. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, just give the man the football. And they just didn't do it. I'm like, every now and then, man, it's okay to get 4 yards. They almost act like it's not a good thing to hand the ball off to a guy on 1st and 10, get 4 yards. That's not good enough. I'm like, since when did that not become good enough? I just don't know, man.
And also a consideration is the fact that, another reason for a low amount of carries or opportunities because now you're playing from behind. And so
that's true.
You can't really just continue to focus and try to keep defenses honest with the run game if you're behind. You're trying to get points in a hurry, right?
Correct.
So that's one of the things that both of those guys
absolutely
were, able to be successful despite not always having successful drives, long drives, not having the efficient and productivity on the offensive end. So it even speaks more volumes to how great and impactful they were.
Absolutely. Well, man, I appreciate you joining us today, man, and taking time out. Tell us a little bit about what you got going on, man, and and just, what you're promoting, and tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, man. So besides, being the quarterback coach here at Campbell University, man, I'm a mental health therapist that specializes in family and marriage. And so I am big on mental health, man. Me, Dee Brown, this gladiator that everyone kind of knows, even had his own battle. And that's been well documented from the last couple of years. And so when that happened, that experience really opened my eyes to what our society and our world is going through. And it's a lot of people who deal with pain on a daily basis, man, and just don't know how to handle it or deal with it. And for us men, that's one of the main drawbacks for us is we have a difficult time learning how to express ourselves. The one emotion that we do associate with is anger. We can do that easily, right?
Right.
And if it's a celebratory thing, we can laugh. But anything besides that, we have a hard time expressing. And so who does that affect? It affects your coworkers at work. It affects your wife at home. It affects how you talk to your kids. It affects everyone you come encounter with. And so being an advocate for mental health, man, that's where my heart is at. That's where God has placed me and anointed me to be an impactful person in the community in that area, man, because it's very needed. Even talking about, our Black culture, our Black families, it's not something that we grew up with. The stigma was, what happens in our house stays in our house, or,
right.
Don't be telling anybody your business, or
right.
suck it up type of thing. And it's like, man, that's not mental strength. That's really being weak. And so, when you learn, and I'm not advocating for anyone to just talk to anybody. You talk to a qualified professional, and get some of these things off your chest and learn some of these ways to cope with stress, to cope with anxieties, to learn how to communicate, to learn how to conflict manage. Those are things that are great for us if we learn those things. But in order to do that, you have to become self-aware, and you got to be willing to become vulnerable in those areas. And it doesn't mean you're soft. It doesn't mean you're weak. You look at me, I know I don't look like no soft dude, but man, I'll tell you straight up, if you hurt me, and maybe 5-6 years ago, we couldn't even use that word. You use the word hurt, and it's like, man, yes, and I can't be afraid to be able to say that to you and let you know how I truly feel. And so mental strength and mental fitness, if you don't want to use the word mental health, is what I'm all about, man. And I'll stop being a college coach if it means that I'll have more impact. But the truth of the matter is, it gives light to what my gifts are here being a coach, because I get to touch each and every young man that's on this team on an everyday basis, and they come voluntarily to talk and process their pain, man. And so I see an impact every day, and I thank God to giving me this platform and anointing me with this gift, man, to help our young men as much as I can. And so I am where my feet are at, and here at Campbell University is where I reside now. And so I take advantage of every day, man, because it's truly a blessing to be able to be a part of these young men's lives and help them become young men and learn how to to communicate, learn how to express themselves, so that when they become, coaches, when they become fathers, when they become husbands, pillars in their community, that they do it the right way, man, and they become a positive impact for the ones that they come in contact with.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I appreciate you sharing that, man. And thank you. And continue to be an advocate, man. Because like you said, there's so many people out there that just, for so long, it was such a stigma to say anything. And the tide on that I see is turning.
Yes.
Where people can actually communicate and express how they feel and feel comfortable and be in comfortable spaces. And I think that's the most important part. Be in a comfortable space and share, because so you can be helped. We all need it. We all need it, man.
Tell it, man.
I appreciate you saying that. I appreciate you being an advocate. Thank you for joining, and we will have you back soon, man. Thank you.
Thank you, man. Keep blowing the whistle, man. You're doing a great job, man. And I appreciate you having me. God bless you. And have a good night.
You too, man. Thank you.
All right, bud.
Mm-hmm.